Let's talk about trade-offs. The Ozempic bill, not technically the Ozempic bill, but we're going to talk about a bill in Congress that will become a law, maybe, that will pay for weight loss drugs. It is going to be a government subsidy for those in need. Let's talk about it. House committee passes bill that would allow Medicare to cover weight loss drugs. The vote by the Ways and Means Committee is one of the first steps needed to reverse a 2 decades old ban prohibiting the government from paying for these type of weight loss drugs. Being overweight and obese leads to chronic illness. That puts people in the hospital. That is expensive. We would love for individuals to not have to pay a lot for their health care. We would love for individuals supported by the government not to have to pay a lot of hospital bills because of their health. So if on the front end we can help people lose weight, they'll stay out of the hospital, we will save money. Get people healthy, we'll save money on the back end. That is Congress's reasoning to pay for the weight loss drugs. Get people healthy, get them out of the hospital, save some money, spend it elsewhere. Imagine a pool of money in this world. Don't even think about the government right now. Just think, there is so much money in our economy. Where would you like that money to go? How would you like that money invested? What would be the most productive use of the money in our economy? Is it spending on healthcare costs? Well, if we didn't spend on so many healthcare costs, if people were healthy, that money would be spent in places that could benefit our society year after year and grow our nation into a strong nation again. You could spend that money instead on schools, on infrastructure, roads, internet, technologies that help our country. You literally could spend it at firms or on businesses. And by buying things from those businesses, it would create jobs. It would create better products, better competition. And individual households could also have more of that money and buy more homes and spend it. Where do you want to spend the money? In the hospital sick, or on things, invest in things that could develop our nation into a great nation? Well, it's clear. We could spend the money in more productive uses than on healthcare costs. So if we get healthcare costs under control, mainly by giving people weight loss drugs that keep them out of the hospital. If they're out of the hospital, that money will be spent elsewhere. That's the reasoning here. Obesity, being overweight, leads to chronic illness, leads to people being in the hospital a lot. It's very expensive. Unfortunately, many of these people who are in the hospital a lot are being paid for by tax dollars, be it Medicare for the elderly or Medicaid for low-income families. So that means these healthcare costs are not necessarily paid for by the individual. They're paid for by the government. And where does the government get that money to pay for these bills because people are overweight or obese? Well, they get it through tax dollars. So other individuals, healthy or not, are paying taxes that then pay for the healthcare costs of those who are overweight or obese. It is also paid for by our posterity, you, the future generation, because tax revenue does not make up for all of these bills. So the government taxes to pay for the bills of people who are on Medicare or Medicaid. It also has to borrow money from banks, issue bonds to pay for the rest of the bill, to pay for the elderly and pay for low-income families who are in the hospital. After time, they have to pay back that loan. So you, the posterity, future generation, you're going to pay tax dollars that ultimately would pay for that loan, that paid for the medical costs. At the same time in the future, you're going to pay more taxes to continue to pay for Medicare and Medicaid. So not only are you paying for Medicare and Medicaid when you're alive, you're paying for past Medicare and Medicaid recipients. It's very expensive. If we were healthy, healthcare costs would go down, taxpayers would fund less. Also, taxpayers could see their money go to more beneficial programs. Not that this is not a beneficial program, but programs that may help with the growth of our nation. So the House committee more than likely is going to pass this bill for these GLP drugs that help and are effective with weight loss, which ultimately could result in healthier Americans. So the individual ends up in the hospital. Well, what if we're able to, through this program, give these GLP drugs help people lose weight. They stay out of the hospital, the bill will drop. Sounds good. This is not very much different than if, say, because some people, for whatever reason, may have problems with funding a weight loss drug. It's a stigma in our nation that people have with our physical appearance, with weight. Well, how about you just look at it this way? If the government had an issue like heart disease, and it could simply pass a bill that approves a drug that would stop heart disease, would you do that? If the government could pass a bill that gives out and pays for medicine that stops heart disease, keeps people from the hospital, lowers the expenses, would you do it? So why not do the same for weight loss? Let's talk about the bill. Let's talk about it from the individual perspective. Let's take the government out of it. So someone is overweight, they're obese, and unfortunately that leads to all sorts of chronic illnesses, that leads to time in the hospital. It's expensive. Now, for the government perspective, many people on Medicare and Medicaid, obese, overweight, and in the hospital, we have to pay the taxes, we have to pay for the loans. Sure would be nice to not have to fund these programs. Not that we don't want to fund them, but if people are healthy, we wouldn't have to fund them. And so through this bill, you could maybe possibly reduce that. Now, what about if you are not on Medicaid or Medicare? Do we care about those people? How do they affect the ultimate system? Well, they're going to impact everyone just as well. So take the government out. We just did government and how we have to fund Medicaid and Medicare. What about private insurance? No government funding, no taxes. On the surface, you'd say, well, this doesn't really matter, but it does matter because we have to look at how private insurance is funded. How is insurance funded? A group of people all pay monthly premiums, monthly insurance costs. They put all their money together. It goes to the insurance company. The insurance company then invests that money and grows that money and builds up more and more money. So that's how insurance works. They take all of your monthly fees, they invest them, they grow that over time. And then when someone gets sick from that group, the insurance company takes the money that they received, that they invested, that they grew, and they pay the medical costs of that individual. Now, if there are a lot of people using the service, if a lot of people from that group are going to the hospital because they're obese or overweight, then the insurance company has to pay more and more and more. Yes, they're investing, but now their expenses are higher. If their expenses are higher and more money is going out, then they're going to need more money coming in from the group. And so the more we use through private insurance, the more they need to come in. And ultimately that results in higher premiums or higher monthly bills for everyone. You'll say, well, I'm not even using it. I'm healthy. Well, this is a group system. That's how insurance works. So if more people in your group are using it and you're not, it doesn't matter. Your premiums are still going to go up because the insurance company simply has to collect more in to pay more out. The more people are sick because they're obese or overweight, the more the insurance company has to pay. So they have to raise the rates. Now, fewer people are going to use their insurance because more people are healthy. Then the insurance company could lower their rates. So we have an issue with obesity and being overweight in this nation, leading to chronic disease, leads to us going to the hospitals more and more. And the more we use hospitals, the more the bill there is, but also simply the more that we need hospitals, the higher the price goes. Demand goes up, price goes down. Think of it this way. People are getting bigger every day, but we're not building more hospitals. People are getting bigger every day, but we're not building more nurses and doctors. So demand is increasing, but the supply of the service has not changed. This is, in fact, an example of inflation. Prices increasing. We have people competing for the same services. People competing for the use of the doctor's office. Limited supply, demand increases, it's a bidding war, prices go up. The bill goes up for private insurance, for Medicaid and Medicare, which then is a bill to you, the taxpayer. But on top of this, it's not just the price. When demand increases, we are overflowing the hospitals. And so your service is probably likely to decline. And if there's more and more people using up more and more space at the hospital, then you're probably not going to get the best service, and this could lead to possibly poor healthcare results in the hospital. So not only is there a cost in terms of money to this problem, but as we overuse and overcrowd hospitals, we could lead to more fatalities, poor service, even worse health conditions. So we have a choice. Should we give people this medicine paid for by the government and hope on the back end, in the long run, helps us lose weight, keeps us out of the hospital, and we save money? Other people are going to argue that, why are we treating everything on the back end? Why do we always just seek a pill to solve our problems, whereas we could just simply spend money through government taxes to help people live healthy lives on the front end so they never become overweight or obese, and that will keep them out of the hospital? You have a choice. Which do you want to fund? Which government do you want to elect, and what decision will they make with your subsidies, with your free stuff? Who should be in charge? We have elected representatives, and they're going to make the decision. Congress is voting now. Do we fix it on the back end? Just give them a pill. Let's get it over with. Or should we take a more long-term, long-run approach of, well, why don't we just think about health? Now, you may remember the food pyramid. This is an example of the government taking the side of the left. Like, let's just teach people to be healthy. And if they're healthy, that'll keep them from being obese or overweight, and then that will lower healthcare costs. So they designed the food pyramid, which was an absolute disaster. And as you look on your screen, 6 to 11 servings of carbohydrates in breads is a terrible idea. What were they thinking? Well, what they were thinking, unfortunately, is what often happens is when the government is making a choice, it's not necessarily that representative government that is making a lot of the plans. They can be guided or misled by firms who sell bread. And when the firms that sell bread and carbohydrates get in the ear, mainly with money, of those politicians, they guide the science. And in this case, they did guide the science. So the government did try the thing on the left. Well, let's spend some money on healthy living. Well, how do we live healthy? And the cereal company comes in and says, oh yeah, hey, Mr. Fruit Loops, how do we live healthy? Eat more Fruit Loops. Oh, are you sure that they need to eat more Fruit Loops, more Lucky Charms? Of course. Here's $50,000 for your next campaign. Here's $50,000 to help buy ads for your next election campaign. Okay, yeah, thanks for $50,000. More Lucky Charms. Unfortunately, that's what's happened. Hopefully that doesn't happen in the future, but that probably led to our nation of overweight and obese by telling people to eat the food pyramid. We've now reversed that, but our government still does recommend a lot of things that are unhealthy, and unfortunately those recommendations are based on science that was given to them by private businesses that seem to benefit, like Lucky Charms. So in the end, we'll probably end up selecting the side of the right. Go with the medicine. That's what they're looking to do. Pass the GLP bill. Pass the weight loss drug bill. Go ahead and just keep paying for it. But will that really save us money? Is it the most effective use of the food or the money, taxpayer dollars? So here it is. They're probably going to pass that bill. What are they going to decide? Fix it on the front end or fix it on the back end? Well, they're more than likely going to go with the fix it on the back end. They're more than likely going to prove that these programs or these GLP, Ozempic, Wegovy, the weight loss drugs will be paid for by the government. So if you're on Medicare or Medicaid, your weight loss drug will be free for you, paid for by the taxpayer. Ultimately results in about $1,000 a month. That's how much these drugs cost. Now you can say, hey, if you give the people these drugs, they're going to lose weight, keep them out of the hospital. It's good for all of us. And that is true. But it's not free. It's $1,000 a month. And there's 74% of Americans are overweight. $1,000 per person. We're talking 200 million people. Where are we going to get this money? Even if it saves us in the back end, how do we get it on the front end? This is $3 trillion annually is what this bill will cost. If this law comes through, the cost to Americans for the free stuff, for the subsidies, $3 trillion. It would be cheaper to give every single American 3 healthy meals a day. And you would pay for a gym membership for every one of those Americans at the same time. For $3 trillion every single year, the government can give the people on Medicare and Medicaid a pill, or they can take that $3 trillion and give it to everyone and give everyone 3 meals a day. That means you never have to buy a meal again. And your gym membership's paid for. Which do you think is a better option? Which do you think they're going to choose? I know we're probably going to go with the pill. Why are we going to go with the pill? Well, one of the big reasons is going to be that the pharmaceutical companies give a lot of money to those representatives, help them get elected, and once they are elected, they get to make the decisions. And so when it comes time, do we pass this bill or not? Do they listen to the voter that voted for them? Or do they listen to the person that put $50,000 in their pocket? Big pharma, the pharmaceutical companies. Now, why are the pharmaceutical companies paying these politicians? Because they stand to get $3 trillion. They want to sell their medicine to those people on Medicare and Medicaid for $1,000 a pop. They like it. So they pay $50,000 in the front, but on the back, they get to pay $3 trillion back out to them. Seems like a good deal to me. It's up to you to decide. You get to pick the politicians, and hopefully you elect the politicians that listen to the voters, and maybe they'll side with you. Maybe you prefer the medicine version. It's up to you how the government subsidizes people, where the free stuff goes, who pays for it. But this is probably ultimately where we're going to go. There it is. You can defend it, you can criticize it, see both ends, all sides.